black youth run police department. I said Afrocentric black youth, not just black youth. Mayor Dinkins was an Afrocentric. He was an Afrocentric mayor, and Brown was definitely an Afrocentric police commissioner. So it's not good enough just to have a black face in a high place, because we see that now. We have more elected officials today than probably we ever did in the history. But you see, we still have so many deficiencies. And as it relates to, my, in terms of assistant of recruitment, I didn't think I skirted the answer. Every time I go out and speak, in terms of bringing this information as it relates to law enforcement to our community, that's my attempt to, maybe no one in here can take the police exam, but maybe they have a son, a daughter, a grandson, a granddaughter. So all of these efforts go towards, when I talk about the lectures that we do, all of those are efforts to attempt an assistant recruiting. People who get knocked off the list, is as you correctly stated, brother, a lot of blacks fail the psychological exam, fail for a whole lot of other reasons. They call our hotline. So yeah, we do periodically, consistently, do the best that we can to encourage African Americans to take the exam, because we think it's important. And being here, I feel, I got the invitation, I accepted the invitation, I appreciate the invitation. The NBA playoffs start today. I'm an NBA junkie, but my being here is my commitment to my people whenever given an opportunity to give it
And last question.
That's about police things.
What's the status of
Wait, yeah.
100? No, I'm just following with the brother. The status of 100 law enforcement today.
Okay, yeah, well, are they strong?
Active members.
Right, are they active members as strong as a Michael Gray? That's gonna be a hard one. Maybe not as strong.
As strong as you?
Maybe a little close as strong as me. No, we have some good brothers and sisters in the department. They it's a different set of circumstances. I'm telling you, one of the things this Commissioner Kelly, this mayor, some of y'all love, man. This police commissioner put an officer who came forward about corruption, put him in the crazy house. That was not only to treat this officer, but that's all anybody else step up. Right. So, brothers, you have some good, strong brothers who they aren't as active as we were, when we were on the job, put it that way.
That Amnesty International report came out during his watch, Bratton. Okay. It also involved activities of another guy that's, they got all kinds of cops now. They got cops that you don't recognize as cops. They have cops that they call commissioners. The commissioner for the special investigation of the school district in New York City was Richard Condon. That's right. Richard Condon's a former police commissioner. For about 89 days in Koch's term, he was a former police commissioner. He fought. Amnesty International pointed out that during those people's term, no matter, out of all the abuses that occurred, about 2% ever got any type of justice. There were hundreds that were lost, dozens, I should say, of cases that were just lost. They don't know what happened to them, just lost in the system. So 2% got any kind of justice. You know what kind of justice they got from the Civilian Complaint Review Board? Take 2 days vacation, 1 day's vacation. That was it. Nobody was fired. There are years where not one police officer was fired. That same cop who was the chief of the watch and who was the commissioner, so on and so forth, during those periods, Richard Condon, when he got to the education department, he's the one, people were looking at the commissioner of education. If he could tell the commissioner of education, go stand in that corner. The commissioner for the special commissioner for the investigation of the school district had superpowers. He could go to any place, any building, any territory of the Board of Education. He could initiate an investigation for any reason that he was suspicious of, any reason, and he used it to decimate the education department of all the strong black principals and strong black teachers. The same commissioner who never fired one cop, who never gave more than just a day or two of, in the education department, this is the sentence he would give. For a sick note infraction, you're fired.
Wow.
You can never work in the Department of Education again. It would be specified. Those were the things that he did. When Klein tried to hire somebody very quickly in the first thing you got to do to show who's in power is he smacked down Klein's appointment. This woman, Donna something, I can't remember what her name was. She hired her husband or something like that, and he just smacked smacked her down. And Klein couldn't do anything about it. So there's two things I want to point out. One is that he was a cop. Two, that the Civilian Complaint Review Board is not civilians. Because after he left the police force, he became the head of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. He went through a step before that. He went and worked at Payne Webber, a place that's involved with private prisons, investing private. So this cops all permeating the system, and the fact that it's systemic is demonstrated by the fact that this guy had to hire Bratton as the commissioner. Bratton is probably the worst you ever had.
Thank you.
The worst you ever had, and he hired him. And this supposed person who's supposed to be the liberal, hired him. So the police. It's police presence all through the government, and the function of the police is systemic. It's not something that can be changed by an individual or a few exceptional individuals.
What about the role of the police union?
Well, unionism, there's been several different policies employed through the decades to improve the police. Suppose that every time they have another commission, the Mullen Commission, the Knapp Commission, the whatever it is, they institute a different type of policing. So that at one point they'll say, we're going to centralize the police. Next time they say we're going to decentralize. And then they say we're going to centralize. And then we're going to decentralize. And then we're going to have the professional movement. We're going to make sure all the police are professionals, that they have an education, that they can pass the exam, blah, 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 blah. Then they say we're going to have community policing. And then they have unionism. They're going to have the union. And then they have tailorization. In other words, they stop the unions. Stop the police from striking and having so much power, so on and so forth. None of those things make a difference because the origin of these people, the reason for them, is what I said before, to organize the crime and to keep order for certain classes of the society. That's their job. I don't care whether you're a black police officer or a white police officer. If I'm out there demonstrating and I use a bullhorn, you're going to come over and tell me I can't use the bullhorn. I don't care if you're a black officer or a white officer, and they say you're supposed to walk on this side, don't block the entrance of the business. If I block the entrance of the business, you're going to come there and try to make me stop blocking the entrance of the business. And if I resist, you're going to arrest me, you're going to lock me up, and depending upon how hard I resist, I could get injured or killed. And that doesn't matter whether it's a white police officer or a black police officer.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. Speak loudly. I don't really have a question for you per se, and I do have a question for you. More of a critique. As you notice, a lot of people are commenting on your use of the word Afrocentric. And I understand what you mean. But for me personally, I know a gentleman that's an attorney that based upon his training and supposed mindset, you would just assume he's so Afrocentric. However, he's an attorney, and him and I were engaged in a discussion where he feels that I should teach my young black son to submit himself to the police. That is his way of going home at night, is to suppress and be submissive to the police. He's supposed to be Afrocentric. So I understand what you're trying to get across. I think perhaps a better use of verbiage would be, we should be recruiting conscious, honest, and ethical black men to be on the police force. Because you don't really know who's Afrocentric, is what I'm saying. You understand? You can so-called be Afrocentric, but as you said, you're sitting back watching something go down that is horrible, but you're not brave enough to step up. So that's just for me, the use of the word Afrocentric. I understand what you're saying, but brave, ethical, and compassionate to be able to step up and say this is not right. Because that Afrocentric man disappointed me by telling me
So
that.
maybe he wasn't really Afrocentric.
Exactly.
So we're not talking about the fake Afrocentric.
Exactly.
We're talking about real. And the problem with being ethical and all of that stuff, you can be that, and that is good. It's just sort of like black folks with money. You can be honest with money, but if you don't have that Afrocentric twins to it, then there'll be no commitment to uplift your people or to protect your people.
Your standard of Afrocentric may not be somebody else's standard of Afrocentric.
Right. Well, we'll generally just you talk about somebody who's African people, African cares, African desires. The betterment of African people is central component to their way of thinking, their way of living, and everything they do. So if that's genuinely the person's motivation, that's what we're talking about. Because you can, if you don't have that Afrocentric twins, then you'll take your money and spend it with other folk. We're talking about people who are genuinely concerned about the betterment of African people. And perhaps that attorney wasn't.
He thinks he is.
Right.
Yeah, based on his so-called
Right.
training. Now, my question for you is, so you feel that blacks should not be police officers? How
That's the
about
position I debated too.
That's the position you debated precisely.
The
Very
debate,
good.
So,
very good.
does that also
The
mean-
person who's supposed to come today
I know
couldn't come.
Yes, I
And so like about 3
and I know, I'm
days
sure
ago,
she really did feel that way.
about 3
I
days
know.
ago I found out I had to, and so I had to prepare a.
So you know, but you're in the line of fire right now. So.
All right.
Does that also mean that we should not have black ADAs and we should not have black politicians? Because we will all know the whole system is corrupt.
Alright.
So therefore, we have to be in the system to help the corruption. Because the bad arrest that may be made by the officer then goes on to another level. The ADA has to examine that bad arrest. So if all the officers are white and they're all making bad arrests, then all the ADAs are, let's say, white because they go hand in hand. And then the politicians that make the laws are all white.
There'll be less confusion.
They're not. Because you know what?
There'll be less
Pardon?
confusion.
Oh, that's just my thing. You know.
No, she's just talking about because of time, not because of what you're
Oh,
saying.
I
What you're
know.
saying is good.
No, I'm just saying, so it goes hand in hand. The whole system is corrupt. It's not just the police officer.
It's true, but see, if you're on a plantation in 1861, you're going to be enslaved. It's as simple as that. You are going to be enslaved. You're on that plantation.
But remember we had the house thing.
Hold on a second. You're enslaved. And you might be in the house. See, but that was just
House
something
slaves,
Malcolm made for a
excuse me.
point. You might be this house slaves that kill people. This house slaves that fomented revolution. So it's not, I'm just saying, but you could be in the house, you could be in the field. Okay, but there's a difference between being enslaved and being an overseer. Okay? Now, when you're overseer, that's slightly different.
Yeah.
But you could be forced, but for the most part, I don't think anybody forced somebody to be an overseer. Most of the time, you get forced. That would be something that you would, and that's a different kind of a position to be in. With respect to your son in submission, understand, we must resist, but you must resist intelligently.
Right.
I know that you think less of that man, and so you might think less of me. But if your son is unarmed and a police officer comes over to him, he's going to submit in some form or another. In all likelihood, he's going to submit. Before it's over, he's going to submit in some form or another. So his resistance may have to be to get the guy's badge number, that sort of thing, to answer his questions or whatever it is like that, and then to combat him afterward, to live there. But his job is to live through that situation.
Okay.
Don't encourage your unarmed son
No,
to...
may I say something? The other night I had an
Yes,
incident. I'm so sorry.
Yes, yes.
The other night I had an incident with my friends. We were all hanging out, and the host of the night
Yes.
hired a driver, so we wouldn't have any incidents as far as drinking and driving.
Yes.
The gentleman that was out of town drank too much. We pulled over. He's vomiting. Some cops saw it and they stopped, which is normal. So we said, what's going on? He's here for a funeral. He drank too much, distraught, blah, blah, blah. We have a driver. Don't worry about it. It's fine. He goes to his friend, the black guy who's consoling him, ID. He said, I'm not driving. I don't have ID. I need ID. So I said to him, excuse me, officer, he's not obligated to show you ID, he's not obligated to carry ID. He's not operating a vehicle. His partner said to him, come on man, let's go. Why? Because I let him know, don't bring your nonsense here.
Okay.
Nobody
That kind of
is
resistance.
intimidated by
no,
you.
I didn't understand what you meant
Get
by
out of
resistance.
here.
Yeah. No, that's standing up for
And
your
my
rights.
friend who's an officer, I told him, he said he probably thought you were a lawyer, Sabine.
Right.
So that's what I mean. I'm not telling my son, oh, here's your ID. You don't have to give him ID. And if my son, God forbid, dies as a proud black man, I'm okay. If my here's your ID. You don't need it, but I'm going to give it to you because I want to go home and see my mother. No. You know your rights as an American citizen, which is what my son is.
Okay. He's your son.
That's right. No, you don't need ID. Go about your way and go stop a drunk driver and save that life. Everybody here is okay. We got our friend covered. So you should. Thank you.
I didn't
The
know-
whole
like I
submission
said, I didn't know
thing.
the situation.
Hello, I just wanted to make a comment still on the whole resisting arrest. It's funny, like in the midst of the protests last fall, I was watching, like this is right after my ground, and a black guy made like a chart of what to do when stopped by law enforcement, and the first thing he said was, don't resist. So they had a debate about whether or not this was a good, structure for people interacting with the cops. And there was a white guy that was responding that said, as an American citizen, we do have the right to resist arrest. And then it was funny how later on now they're trying to make that a felony. And, because I was on CNN, that's, national, and, everybody's getting that information. And a lot of people probably thought, oh yeah, I can resist arrest if it's, an unlawful arrest.
Unlawful.
Right.
And it's really a borderline of resisting a lawful arrest because at the scene when the officer's trying to make an arrest, that's not the appropriate time to contest the arrest. To challenge them whether or not it's legal or illegal. So you can resist if it's a quote, so-called legal arrest, which especially me, I locked up many people who said I didn't have the right to lock them up, and I did. So, now when is it appropriate to pay? So if an officer's trying to make an arrest, and let's say you protest arrest, you didn't do anything. And I said you did as a law enforcement officer. We're not on equal ground. The state empowers me the right to make an arrest. The appropriate time to contest that arrest is not on the scene when I'm trying to make it, because then it goes into other, you get yourself in further trouble.
And that's not only on a theoretical level.
Well, I looked it up because I sent it to someone.
Eric
and someone
Garner.
said that it wasn't right. And I looked it up and I saw on the books that we do have the right to resist an unlawful arrest. And if a cop
Eric
was
Garner was
injured,
100% right,
Exactly.
Right,
but he's
Eric-
100% dead.
right, exactly.
but my question was, if we do get more black people on the police forces for our communities, I know that there's a stipulation of like you can't live where you're policing. So how do you think that it is possible to get enough black people to police black neighborhoods that are not from that neighborhood? Is that something that's...
Yeah, well, you can't work in the precinct. I worked in the 7-9, I lived in 8-1. Both of this Bed-Stuy. You can't work in the precinct that you live in because of, a whole host of reasons. But you can live in the neighborhood. Like I said, I was supervising in Bed-Stuy. I worked in the 7-9. The next precinct over is 8-1. That's why I lived there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Next.
How you doing, buddy?
Phenomenal debate.
Thank you.
And I guess I should just start very briefly by saying that you found yourself in the police force for whatever reason with a number of other brothers, and you guys have done the right thing. And sisters. And you've done the right thing. All right? So that has to be said from the outset. But I would like to know whether you agree with Brother McIntosh about the fact that the police, historically and contemporaneously, all right, are an institution of social control that serves not the general population, but serves certain privileged classes that we can identify by virtue of basically their ownership and control of the means of production. I'm going to know that.
Yeah.
And two, does integration represent, whether we're talking about the police force, education, social work, anything, does integration represent the primary and most effective way that one can dismantle these institutions of social control?
And I would say no. We should have a nation within this nation because the entire system is based on white supremacy, the educational system. I think we should have our own schools. Police force. I think we should have our own police force. That's the best case scenario. Theoretically, our people aren't there. Unfortunately, I think we ought to have our own stores, our own economy. I think we ought to have our own president.
How do we get there if we're not there?
Well, first, it begins with consciousness. The consciousness of our people. That's why this setting and this format is so good, because the consciousness level of our people out there, outside these walls, is not that high. They're not ready for that. It would be excellent if we had our own Congress, our own Senate, our own president within this nation. So that was solely concerned about the affairs of black people. We have state senators, they're concerned about the affairs of everybody but us. We need people to get together to meet, to vote, specifically on the concerns of African American people. Theoretically, that's the way it should be. It's unfortunately our people, on the aggregate level, they're not there. So,
Just one other comment on that. I appreciate your response. One of the problems that we all face, I don't think any of us can exclude ourselves, is that if we're not actively struggling to change this system, our behavior represents ways that it gets reinforced and legitimized.
right.
So in that sense, when you say theoretical, you're right at the edge, where we have to make the break with what is, and dream, about freedom, and struggle to make that dream a reality. And that's one of the limitations, I thought, of your presentation. Well, you made very strong arguments. I think you straw man that one.
I don't want nobody this strong again debating.
And let me tell you what you said was just excellent. I think we should be, in best possible case scenario, we would be a part of police officer in order to change the way police function, because that's the system that we have, but simultaneously try to create, institutions or these entities that are controlled and dominated by black, that are solely concerned with the affairs of African people. It'd be excellent if we could do it simultaneously. Now, when we have this structure that we want to set, that's black nationalists controlled, dominated by African people, then we can, take your police department. We good. We got our own.
Problem is, there can be no their police department at the same time that we have ours.
Well, not on paper, but we can do whatever we want. We can agree. Let's say everybody in this room, let's say this room represented Harlem. We can agree to do whatever we want, irrespective of the police department. Now, we know we're not going to end them. We're not going to stop them what they're doing, but we're just going to be engaged in our own personal business.
I understand what you're saying. And there was a time when we committed a whole lot of energy to that, right?
You want to step out so we can see you?
That idea is a dangerous idea to very powerful people.
Yeah, it is.
All right?
Yes, sir.
So that when Malcolm says that, he's dead within 11 months. Let that come out of his mouth. When Dr. King says that our country's the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, right? Within a year that comes out of his mouth, he's dead, right? Which means that when you stand for certain change, right, then the very institutions we're talking about begin to call us and come after us. You know what I mean? So if you're in there, right, it doesn't make any difference. If you're not doing what they want, then they come after you. And I'm not going to give you any lectures about that, because you probably know a whole lot about when they come after you. You see what I mean? So it seems that, we got to start talking about stuff beyond what is, beyond parallel universes and all that kind of stuff, to transformation. You see?
Excellent. Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
I got two questions, and I want to know if I can pose one of them also to Brother Sales. Right? And I greatly appreciated both talks. Now, I think we will agree that the state of our movement, the opinions that we have, are not likely to change the rates of who applies to the police department, or what the ideological frame of mind of those who do apply, who are African, what that state of mind will be. So basically, it's like whether we individually might encourage somebody, but in terms of the general rates, those are likely to proceed unaffected by what we say in here. Given that, What my second question is going to be, what, in your opinions, can we do to more effectively change the mentality of those African people who do join, who don't join already being, black conscious? What can be done to more effectively pull those who do join for whatever reasons they choose to join into a state of mind that is more committed to the well-being of our people and more understanding of the nature of the situation that we're in? That's the second question. The first question is it not possible in those municipalities which are considerably smaller than New York, but are much more population-wise, where black folks do have an ability to gain control of the municipal government and all of the apparatus that go along with it, right? Yeah. Is it not possible for us to have a progressive black police force? That's question number one.
Okay, we're going to make them brief. Step right in. Brother Sales, he said he wanted you to answer first.
Okay. Tupelo, Mississippi, right in the heart of the Delta. Finally got a black sheriff, right? He was almost immediately indicted on murder charges. That's part of, executing his responsibilities. Detroit, all right? We achieved a significant measure of black political power in Detroit. And the governor of the state appoints a receiver, and the banks basically take over Detroit and sell it to the highest bidder.
That's right.
The Republic of New Africa, right? Goes down to the black belt of Alabama and Mississippi, and they're hardly there a week, and they're attacked by the state police with tanks. And much of the leadership is thrown in jail. Now, am I saying that we shouldn't try to elect black mayors, where we can do it? I mean, black sheriffs, of course. Should cities where we have a majority, right, have black police commissioners and a majority black officers on the force? Yes. All I'm saying is that our experience would suggest, right, that we're going to be attacked when we do that, and attacked viciously, all right? And therefore, that cannot be our only strategy, even our primary strategy. Look, put yourself in another position. You running this thing for rich white people. Your assignment is, right, keep them folk running. Like, Ralph Ellison, the Invisible Man, made a letter of recommendation. Keep them folks running, right? Well, how do you keep us running? Well, you don't allow us to coalesce any real political power under people who are conscious. You see? So that's a struggle, It's not just getting more black folks on that. When you raise the question, well, how do we reach the conscious guys? Somebody else is trying to reach their consciousness. We got a whole class of space cadet black people that didn't exist 30, 40 years ago. Some people call the black misleadership class, So, I'm not speaking 100% against anything that's been laid out here. I'm suggesting that the essence of all this is much more struggle. You know what I mean? And talk is very important. As African people, we have to recognize, sticks and stones may not break your bones, right? But words can definitely hurt you, organize you, prepare you, no matter how small the groupings are.
Thank you. Now, who was the second one, Brother D?
The folks who do join, the folks who will join, regardless of what we say. How do we effectively not be heard by folks, but actually effectively bring folks into a state of thinking and acting in line with the needs of our population?
Well, I yield to the person with the experience in doing that.
Well, it's tough. I said earlier, the thing about white people is they control the bells and the whistles. They control the awards and the penalties, and our people see that. Our people observe that. It's as if when you were in college and you looked at the the conditioning of the skin of rat. You know, when if he does this, he gets water, and if he does this, he gets a shot. You know, and that's not only an example of a rat. White folks don't care about the behavior patterns of rat, but they know if it works on a rat, it'll work on people. The challenge that we have, and today especially, is there's just so little that we control, especially as it relates to the source of information. You know, our people are so misinformed. And those brothers and sisters who are conscious, they see what he talks about. You know, individuals within our community raise up amongst the ranks and get penalized. So we have to, the solution is as simple. You know, Kwame Ture said our people aren't poor, we're just poorly organized. The solution to our problem, period, is organization. We must organize, organize, organize. Some will be punished, some will be targeted, but hey, you know, if you're an individual, you know, it's easy to dismantle what you're doing, but if you're an organized group of people, you know, it's very difficult to defeat you. Our success is only going to come with better information, which we really don't have no radio stations, no really viable newspaper. So the information is weak in terms of raising the consciousness of our people in organization. Our people must come together. Every black person should belong to something, some organization, be it civic, social, religious, political, law enforcement, specifically designed to uplift black people. Go out there and ask black people, what do you belong to? You know, our people don't belong to nothing for the most part, and that's one of the greatest deterrents. So organizations should bring us like-minded people together, and we can form a strong organizations where if they deal with you, they're going to have to deal with all of us. And that's going to be the nature of our success.
Were you speaking of the police? Okay, so if you're speaking of police, that's why I yielded to brother. But in terms, if you're talking about our people collectively, you taught me this, Brother D. Many years ago, you had an album that said, how you going to make the black nation rise? You got to agitate, educate, organize. And that's what we try to do. You've got to talk, you've got to write, you've got to have other people talk, and now I guess you got to make DVD. No, that's probably old technology. You gotta do other things too. But that's what we've been doing. I mean, that's what we've been doing. We try to agitate, educate, and organize. Okay, that's it. We're shutting down. We went way over today.
Just a second, we've got a little bit more business to take care of here. This is very important before you leave. Before you leave. So stop those brothers.
Before you leave, hold on.
Nikki, stop.
Sister Betty's trying to say something.
Come on. Yeah. This is very important, and it really is historic. So I want everybody to take part of this. Melvin and Jan, would you come, please? We were in Selma, Alabama with Dr. Adelaide Sanford, who is the founder of the Dr. John Henry Clarke House. It's her work that has brought us here today. And these two individuals that we'll speak to very shortly, they were able to get an audience with the president for Dr. Sanford. And Melvin, who is a videographer, professor, and a husband and a father, took this wonderful picture showing Dr. Sanford.
This is actually the press corps.
This is the press corps. And Dr. Sanford is very, very proud that she's here at the bottom. And so I'm going to let Melvin talk a little bit about how this was able to take place.
Well, very briefly.
You don't want to hold it? Since it's yours? Okay.
Well, very briefly, we were down in Selma to give some lectures at Elder's House and to raise awareness of Elder's House in Selma. And one of the things that we knew that would help would be very instrumental in raising awareness about Selma was to have Dr. Sanford be in a photograph with the President of the United States during this 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Of course, never in our wildest dreams did we think that she was going to be side by side with the President walking across the bridge. think it was the intervention of the Creator that allowed that to happen. But, so she was in this photograph that pretty much went around the world and was on every major newspaper. And of course, we're using the photograph to drum up awareness of Elder's House because we believe it's very important. Very quickly, for people who don't know anything about Elder's House, in 2010, Winnie Mandela was at one of these Jubilee celebrations and told the black people assembled there that you need to own an institution of your own to tell our history, to preserve the history for our children. It fell on fertile ears. Dr. Sanford, Emily Moore, and Dr. Thelma Adair heard this and bought a building, a warehouse in Selma, a couple blocks from Edmund Pettus Bridge, and started Elder's House as a repository of information and history of African people. And so we were blessed to be able to help Dr. Sanford get in this historic photograph, and we hope that it can be used to drum up awareness about this very important institution, Elder's House.
Thank you. Jan?
Well, for me, it wasn't about a photograph. I really wanted the president to meet Dr. Sanford to make him better. So it wasn't about a photograph, it wasn't about raising money. I knew that if he could experience her just for 5 minutes, that he would be better for the rest of his term. And I think that happened. So we got Secret Service clearance, and I was angry because there was a gold rope, and everybody was behind the gold rope except for us. You know, and I'm pushing, and I'm thinking, well, how come we're not behind the gold rope? That's special. And I didn't realize how special it was because only the people in front of the gold rope got to walk with him because he wasn't on the bridge yet. So there were just 4 of us. Everybody else is his family standing in front of this rope. And when he came out, he held our hands, he hugged and kissed our cheeks. His daughters are wonderful. They spoke so respectfully and just naturally that it was wonderful. I think Dr. Sanford made everybody better, and I think it was just a love fest in front of the gold rope. So it wasn't about a picture for me. It was really about a heartfelt experience that I thought would make this country better.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Melvin.
Okay, very quickly, I just want to say that everybody should get Positive Community Magazine because an organization, I started 2 years ago the Digital Media Training Program in Harlem. We train kids in journalism and engineering, and it's under the auspices of the Board for the Education of People of African Ancestry, which Dr. Sanford founded, along with Betty Dobson and a whole bunch of wonderful people here. And we won the White House Student Film Festival, got to go to the White House, and there's an article on our students in this current Positive Community Magazine where the students are pictured who won the White House Student Film Festival and a picture of them with the president. So that's, and the Board for Education of People of African Ancestry is mentioned in the article as sponsors.
Thank you. Now, Brother Noel Leader, stand up. We got to give you some applause. Let's give this man. Brother McIntosh, come on, let's give him applause for an excellent and outstanding debate. We have with us a person that we all know and love and respect. And I can speak of none other than Dr. Rosalind Jeffries. Would you come, please? She is going to close us out, and I know you're going to direct your remarks to these 2 gentlemen, and Nora, you can walk with them.
We are indeed privileged to be here today and to hear the meat from these 2 points of view. given in a quintessential, and so that this means that this series should really be part of a university teaching at the university level, but also the community versus level, so that the person in the street, the grassroots, can understand what it means to be a policeman, what it means to be one that's righteous and one that's unrighteous, and to understand the history from whence we have come, and the points of view that's presented from a psychiatrist that can go down deep to present both sides of an issue, because we know in psychology these are the forces of good and evil within us that we battle with. And these are the forces within us as individuals, but also as a family. And there's certain things that are parts of the secrets of the universe that people don't want to come forward. And what it is that we are a parent people. The other races came from us. I was asked to work with the police department because I teach a course called Race and Ethnic Relations. And so the heads of the police department came and asked, well, how should we work with diversity in the city of New York, etc. And so they were going to have a course, that they wanted to present, and they said, we'll experience it first. And so they came to me for me to take them around to teach them, and I